Chapter 31 Dream Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the dark hole in front of him, Rhaegar was slightly stunned and murmured softly. "Sir, do you think I can tame a dragon?" Illich's expression changed and he said in a panic, "Absolutely not, there is a violent adult dragon inside, and the king will not allow you to take risks." "Why?" Rhaegar looked directly at the White Knight and asked, "Do you think I can't tame a giant dragon?" "No, that's not what I meant." Illich tried hard to organize his words and said earnestly, "It is not easy to get the recognition of the dragon. You should think about it in the long term." "But I want to try, sire." Rhaegar took a step forward and took a deep breath. "My sister can control a dragon and fly at the age of 7. After this winter, I will also be 7 years old. She can do it, but there's no reason why I can't." There was another sentence that Rhaegar did not say: he possesses the blood and fire origin, and has extremely high resistance to flames. The ancient Valyrian bloodline is also strong enough, making it easier to gain recognition from the dragon. "I will not promise you, Prince." Illich stopped in front of Rhaegar and said solemnly, "I once swore to the king that I would protect his eldest son. I can't watch you put yourself in danger. But you also swore to me that you would do your best to complete the tasks I assigned you, no matter life or death, no matter honor or disgrace." Rhaegar yelled loudly, staring at the White Knight in front of him. Perhaps the nightmare, the prefix, and Rhaenyra's neglect all combined at this moment. Rhaegar's heart was filled with a chaotic and extremely negative emotion, like the fear of nightmares, or dissatisfaction with the prefix, or even jealousy of my sister. He is Rhaegar Targaryen. Targaryens are never weak. Behind him is the lair of Dream Fire. Rhaegar wants to tame this dragon and use it to win honor and respect. Eric couldn't stop him, because he is a White Knight. He must keep his oath. Rhaegar looked solemn and gave an order to Illich for the first time. "Now, Rhaegar, the eldest son of Viserys I, is giving you an order to stay where you are and not to disobey." "Prince, you..." Illich wanted to dissuade him, but Rhaegar shouted, "Keep quiet, Sergeant." With the oath on his body, Illich could not live up to the white robe on his shoulders. He stood at attention with a struggling expression and gripped the hilt of the sword. "Very well, oath-keeping White Knight." Rhaegar walked past Illich, glanced at Minas who was stunned at the side, and said, "Illich stayed outside the lair to take care of him. If nothing happens to you, you can go back." Hearing the words of Rhaegar, who was trying to become a noble, Minas shuddered and said excitedly, "No. I want to stay with you. I am familiar with the habits of dragons and can help you." He also hopes to gain the prince's approval and escape the injustice of fate. How could he shrink back at such a critical moment? Rhaegar looked at him strangely and saw that he was looking forward to death. Then he nodded and said, "Okay, if I can tame the Dream Fire, I will credit you with it." "Yes, your highness." When Minas heard this, he became even more excited. He bravely walked up to Rhaegar and entered the cave entrance first to clear the way. Rhaegar did not refuse, and turned back to Illich and said calmly, "He is braver than you, sir." After that, Rhaegar quickly followed Minas, and his figure disappeared into the dark hole. Eric closed his eyes in pain, feeling mixed emotions in his heart. His duty is to protect the prince's safety, but the prince was obviously more adventurous. Entering the lair, Minas picked up a torch from the ground and lit it skillfully, bringing light to the pitch-black space. A fire suddenly illuminated the dark environment, and Rhaegar subconsciously covered his eyes to avoid the bright light. After entering the lair, Minas' excitement subsided greatly and he said nervously, "Your Highness, Mtlnovel has lived in the dragon's lair for many years and has a very violent temper. You can try to observe it from a distance." "I will, Maester." Rhaegar nodded, tilted his head and said, "Are you familiar with the environment here?" Minas smiled shyly, "Yes, Bachelor Bath stipulates that the dragon lair must be checked regularly. Other bachelors can't stand the smell of dragon dung, so I will complete this task." "I see. It seems that you are very responsible for your work." Noting that Minas was leading the way with ease, Rhaegar felt that this man was a promising person. "Your Highness, I usually bring 1 or 2 dragonflies with me when I enter the lair. They speak High Valyrian and can sing songs to appease the dragons. After being praised, Minas blushed and told an important message. At this point, he no longer considered whether the prince in front of him really wanted to tame the dragon, or whether it can be tamed successfully. He just wanted to express himself and get the prince's attention. Rhaegar stared at his back and secretly cursed. The great young man who has been suppressed for many years is too impatient. But it doesn't matter, don't worry about it, as long as it's useful, Rhaegar whispered. Valyrian is my mother tongue, I can try it. Since gaining proficiency in Old Valyrian, he recalled some images that stuck deep in his memory. That was when he was little, probably before the age of 3, at that time. He was in a coma all year round and his life was in danger. What no one knew was that he was briefly awake at that time, but he was too weak to open his eyes, which was the same as falling asleep, but his sense of hearing, touch and smell are fine. For many brief moments when he was half asleep and half awake, Rhaegar could hear soft humming in his ears. He didn't know where the sound was coming from. Sometimes the owner of the voice would caress his face and kiss his forehead. Although I can't see with my eyes, I can't speak with my mouth, but he remembered the voice of the owner of the song, and his nose could smell a faint pungent smell. After waking up, he forgot the content of the song, but he knew what that faint smell was, dragon stench similar to the smell of sulfur. Now, he could roughly recall the content of the ballad, which was a ballad in the ancient Valyrian language. Clearing his throat, Rhaegar imitated the soft tone in his memory and slowly hummed the song called The Shepherd's Sunset. The tender voice of a child suddenly came from the darkness, dispelling the inner uneasiness. Roar! As the song was humming, a huge creature deep in the lair opened its eyes and raised its head in confusion. The underground lair is not spacious, and the distance is not as deep as the tunnel. Rhaegar soon came to a more open underground space. With the flickering light of the fire, the ground was littered with the bones of many large livestock, as well as the smelly dragon dung. Wow! The fire suddenly swayed violently. The dull air became hot, and the clanging sound of chains being dragged sounded from the shadows. Give me the torch, it's enough for you to wait here for me. Through the firelight, Rhaegar saw a giant creature lying in the corner, and knew that it was the giant dragon Mtlnovel. Minas obediently handed over the torch, leaned close to the wall, and said anxiously, Your Highness, you must be careful, and run away immediately if you can't do anything. I will, pray for me. Rhaegar didn't like the warnings that seemed to be parting from life or death, so he hummed a song and moved forward slowly, approached the huge figure in the corner. This is the last update. I hope all book friends will support me and give the author more encouragement. Mtlnovel is a relatively gentle dragon, and being out of the sun in its lair all year round makes it even more irritable. Chapter 32 Taming Failure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Click. Stepping over a pile of foul-smelling dragon dung, Rhaegar accidentally stepped on a bone covered with bite marks, which looked very abrupt in the quiet and dim space. The sudden abnormal sound startled Rhaegar and made him break into a cold sweat, his heart pounding rapidly. His eyes were constantly staring at the figure in the dark, for fear that some small mistakes would anger him, beating his violently heaving chest. Rhaegar was sure, if the physical condition was 6 months ago, the heart may have begun to supply insufficient blood, and a sudden death would occur if the condition was not good. Rhaegar took a breath and tried to calm down his excitement, continue to hum unskilled songs. Wow! After a while, the sound of chains clashing sounded again. At this time, Leonor had already closed a large distance, and could vaguely see the appearance of dream fire. Mtlnovel has a slender body, with a few silver lines on its light blue scales, as well as light blue wings and silver back scales. The faucet hidden in the shadows is not very clear, but a pair of slightly curved silver long horns were exposed in the air. Seeing this light blue dragon, Rhaegar stopped subconsciously. At this time, Mtlnovel's slender neck was curled up at his side, and his wings were folded against his ribs, as if he was resting, but Rhaegar knew that Dreamfire had already been awakened by the song. He was secretly looking at his intruder. Being alone with an ownerless adult dragon, Rhaegar would be lying if he said he wasn't afraid. The arm holding the torch was trembling, the legs seemed to be filled with lead and could not move at all, and even the lips that sang the song felt numb. Move quickly. Fear took over the control of his body. Rhaegar's only sanity was to beat his legs hard, trying desperately to move forward. He came here to tame the dragon and couldn't give up halfway. After a while, it seemed that Leonar's tense nerves relaxed slightly after seeing that Mtlnovel did not take the initiative to drive it away. Driven by the will not to admit defeat, his legs took another step, 30 meters, 20 meters, 15 meters. As the distance got closer, Rhaegar could clearly see the dream fire, as he thought, Mengwa had woken up long ago. The angular dragon head rested on the slender tail, and a pair of amber pupils stared at him indifferently. In a small space, the oppression of an adult dragon is extremely strong. It was like a sword of Damocles hanging above his head, and he didn't know when it would drop. Rhaegar could no longer hum the ballad, and his breathing gradually became heavier and clearer to his ears. After seeing the giant dragon, we can't give up all our efforts. The sense of stress made his whole body stiff. Rhaegar encouraged himself loudly in his heart, and his eyes met Mengwa. Mengwa, become my partner, and I will take you back to the blue sky. Biting his lips until they were bloody, Rhaegar squeezed out a shout from between his teeth, holding a torch high in one hand and a palm in the other. No matter what, he would try to tame the dream fire. Roar! Faced with his actions, Mengwa's throat twitched and a dull growl came out of her mouth. At this time, Mengwa had just woken up, and her temper was pretty good, not too repulsive. He sniffed and seemed to sense some inexplicable connection with the other person. Mengwa naturally understands what that is from decades of complex experience. Its first and previous owner, Rhaena, had this blood connection. Mengwa's chilling pupils looked at Rhaegar, revealing a look of scrutiny. Rhaegar shouted. Again, Mengwa, recognize me. You shouldn't stay in the dark dragon's lair without seeing the light of day. Hiss. Hearing his cry, Mengwa also responded with a loud dragon roar. At this moment, the young prince and the dragon who had been imprisoned for decades met each other's eyes, and the inexplicable connection attracted them to each other. Each other's figures are reflected in each other's pupils. Under this vague connection, Lei Jia felt the true emotions in Mengwa's heart: mania, anger, resentment, and a deep longing for freedom. The huge negative emotions were as deep as an abyss, and Rhaegar was shocked. Then I thought about it. A dragon that should belong to the sky and the wilderness was imprisoned for decades after losing its owner. The transition from youth to adulthood in this sunless crypt is understandable. Lei Jia mustered up his courage, moved forward, and said sincerely, Mengwa, let me take you out of here. Dreamfire stared at Rhaegar. Although she couldn't understand his language, she could feel the empathy in his words. It has been held captive for too long. Really want to leave. The dream fire moved, the wings support the ground, and the head is raised high, wanting to show the most majestic side of himself. Wow, however, strong shackles locked Mengwa's neck and feet, and before it could stand up normally, it was pulled hard by the chains. The effects of forces are reciprocal. Mengwa was so looking forward to standing up one moment, and the tug she received the next moment was so painful. With a pop, Mengwa fell to the ground, his slender neck almost breaking, and it hit the cave wall heavily. Seeing this scene, Rhaegar was unspeakably worried and said in panic, Mengwa, how are you? He hadn't noticed yet that the moment Mengwa fell, the newly established connection between them was broken. Mengwa struggled on the ground for a moment, then raised his head again, and violent tongues of fire emerged from the dragon's kiss. Mengwa, are you okay? Rhaegar took a tentative step forward, looking at each other again. Mengwa's eyes lost all intimacy, only anger and rage remained. Hiss. Mengwa suddenly roared, the dragon's kiss opened wide, and orange-yellow mixed with sky-blue dragon flames spurted out. No. Calm down Mengwa, we can be partners. Lei Jia's expression changed drastically, and he tried to regain Mengwa's reason in disbelief. However, the dragon flames are coming. Facing the dragon flames that were like pillars of fire, his desire to survive made him quickly turn around and lie down among the rugged bones. The dragon flames missed him, but the sparks inevitably landed on his unshielded back. The dragon flames, far exceeding ordinary flames, instantly burned away the clothes and fell on the fair skin. Ah! The severe pain seemed to tug at Rhaegar's nerves, and he let out a shrill scream. His head tilted back uncontrollably, and his eyes almost bulged out of their sockets. For a moment, Lei Jia thought he would die of pain. Facts have proved that blood and fire come from the same source, is not just talk. Although it hurt like hell, Rhaegar didn't die. How could this happen? Why did Mengwa lose control? At the critical moment, Rhaegar's rationality overcame his fear and issued the most correct instructions. Taking advantage of the opportunity when Dream Fire was spitting out dragon flames, Lei Jia struggled to get up and ran away without hesitation. The torch was lost just now, so Rhaegar could only move forward in disgrace. His staggering steps were littered with bones, and stumbling had become the norm. Hiss! The mist blow aroused Menghua's ferocity even more, struggling against the chains, roaring and spitting dragon flames randomly. The splendid dragon flames illuminated the lair, burning the stone walls and bones wantonly, grazing Rhaegar's side from time to time. Damn it, it's obviously almost successful. Running in pursuit of the scorching dragon flames, Rhaegar was frightened and couldn't help thinking about why he failed. "Prince, watch your back," a familiar voice came, and before Rhaegar could react, he was knocked down by a white figure. Boom! The next second, the place where Lei Jia was originally was engulfed by dragon flames, burning out a carbonized pit half a foot deep. It's a pity that the protagonist's dragon is not dream fire. Thanks to book friends Qianshuang Descent, Fearless, Dragon and Tiger Mysterious Altar, God's Partiality, and Huang Xiaoyang for their 100-point reward respectively. Chapter 33 Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rolling to the ground, Rhaegar's head was confused and he looked around blankly. Turning his head to look behind him, he saw Illich, dressed in silver armor and white robes, pressing on top of him, protecting him tightly. "Illich, you should be guarding the entrance of the cave. Why are you here?" His brain couldn't turn around for a while, so Rhaegar asked in a daze. "Protecting your safety is my most important responsibility." Illich's voice was dull. He stood up quickly with his hands and feet, held Rhaegar in his arms, and ran wildly. Rhaegar didn't hear what he said clearly and couldn't help but look back. "I also want to see what Menghua looks like." He had almost tamed Dream Fire. Unexpectedly, things change too quickly, and you fall out at the first sign of falling out, and your efforts are in vain. Hiss. Eric walked quickly, running out of the lair in a few steps and running out along the tunnel. Rhaegar's eyes remained on Menghua, watching the light blue beast vent its anger. Suddenly, his eyes noticed the chain around Menghua's neck. Menghua's body twisted back and forth, and the sharp dragon teeth bit into the chain as thick as an adult's thigh, causing sparks to fly everywhere. "It's the chain." The chain interrupted Menghua's master recognition ceremony, which angered it. With a flash of inspiration in his mind, Rhaegar screamed and stared angrily at the chain that caused his failure to tame the dragon. Upon discovering the reason, Rhaegar immediately exploded. His mood was no better than that of Menghua, who was going crazy at the moment. He wanted to kill the bastard with this chain. Before he could say anything else, Illich ran around the corner and completely lost Menghua's sight. After a while, he rushed out of the nest and returned to the entrance of the cave. Minas rushed over immediately and said anxiously, "How is your highness? Is everything okay?" Illich pushed him away and snorted, "Shut up, you'd better pray that the prince is fine." With that said, he placed Rhaegar on the ground and squatted down to check back and forth. Rhaegar was now wallowing in regret, at his mercy. "Damn, I almost tamed the Dream Fire." Such regret in his heart. Illich first opened Rhaegar's head and checked it back and forth. After confirming that the head was not injured, he checked the limbs. "My arms and legs are fine, my hands and feet are fine." While chanting, Illich looked at Rhaegar's back, and his expression immediately became gloomy. The clothes on the back had long been burned away, and the back that should have been white was covered with dense blisters. "This is a serious burn," Minas screamed as if blisters were growing on him. "Quiet, I'm not blind yet." Illich glared at him bitterly, wishing he could kill the illegitimate bachelor who had bewitched the prince to train the dragon with a sword. After a brief separation, Minas has regained his composure. Of course he knew what the consequences would be if the prince was hurt. When he thought of the gallows beckoning to him, Minas felt his eyes darken. "Wait a minute, I know herbalism and medicine. I can treat his highness." Afraid of returning, Minas also protected his sanity and thought of a way to save the situation. Afraid that Illich would not listen to his advice, he pulled out a collar from his clothes, with 3 different types of links hanging on it: black iron, silver, and gold. "Go away, I don't trust you." How could Illich listen to him? He picked up Rhaegar and left. During the life and death crisis just now, Rhaegar didn't feel anything. Now out of danger, Rhaegar took a deep breath and almost fainted from the pain following Illich's movements. "Jazz, wait a minute, it hurts too much." The entire back and the back of the neck were severely burned. The pain from the fire was irritating the nerves all the time and had begun to worsen towards numbness. It's okay to let me deal with it temporarily for His Highness. His current injury can't help but be shaken, and he must be treated as soon as possible. Minas opened his hands and blocked Alik's path. Illich knew the priority of the matter and looked at Rhaegar hesitantly. Leonor bared his teeth and said, "Treat it." "I can't stand it anymore." Illich nodded, stared at Minas with an evil look, and warned, "If I find out that you dare to play tricks, you will be in trouble." Minas hummed softly, "I cherish life more than you think." Then he told Illich to carry Rhaegar on his back and walk out of the tunnel smoothly. "My residence is near the dragon's lair. There are herbs and equipment there." After exiting the tunnel, Minas led the way up the stairs and walked into a narrow wooden house on the edge of the dragon's lair. "You live here?" Looking around at the dilapidated furniture and musty smell in the wooden house, Illich didn't expect a bachelor to be so mixed up. Minas quickly went to the bed and lay down, pulling out a square wooden box from under the bed. After opening it, there are various bottles and jars inside, containing medicinal powders, pills. "Put the prince flat on the bed, and I'll do some simple surface cleaning first." Minas spoke in a hurry, not even in the mood to argue with Eric. "The movement is a bit big, please be patient." Illich reminded Rhaegar and saw him roll down his back and press him on the bed. Hiss. "Isn't it a little late for you to remind me?" Rhaegar's face was twisted in pain and indignant. "Stop talking and save some energy, Your Highness." Minas found 2 ceramic jars and lightly sprinkled a layer of medicinal powder on Rhaegar's back. "It hurts, it hurts." Rhaegar gritted his teeth, his hands and feet spasming uncontrollably. He turned his head to look at Eric and said painfully, "Why didn't I faint? Wouldn't it be normal to faint early after such an injury?" Illich was speechless and choked. "People will faint when they endure unbearable severe pain. The fact that you didn't faint proves that the pain is not enough." "But I already feel strong enough." Rhaegar argued hoarsely, "It's not that he's talkative. If he didn't find someone to chat with to distract him, he might actually pass out from the pain." 7 hells. Such extensive burns came from dragon flames. "How did Your Highness survive?" Minas couldn't help but sigh while applying medicine and bandage. Judging from the knowledge he has learned, the dragon flames exhaled by an adult dragon are enough to melt steel. If the human body comes into direct contact with the dragon flame, it will be burned to ashes. It's hard to imagine that Rhaegar could still remain conscious after being scratched by dragon flames. Hearing Minas's exclamation, Rhaegar asked instead, "Aren't you waiting for me by the lair? Why did Sir Illich come to save me?" Minas' expression froze, and he said in shame, "I was confused for a moment, so I led you into Dreamfire's lair. I regretted it as soon as you entered. I ran out specifically to seek help from this Lord White Knight, fearing that you would be in danger. Unexpectedly, Mtlnovel went crazy so quickly and still caused you to suffer such serious injuries." Rhaegar ignored him and looked at Illich. Eric did not deny it. He knelt down on one knee and said loudly, "The duty given to me by the king is to protect you, so letting you go into danger alone is already a serious breach of responsibility on my part. I'm sorry for carrying the white robe." After saying that, Illich lowered his head and pulled off the white cloak that was mostly burned on his back. Looking at the burnt white robe, Rhaegar looked at Illich's back with concern and asked, "Are you injured, sir?" Illich was slightly startled. "No, Prince." Leonor breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this and said bitterly, "I'm not the best. It's my fault for insisting on my own way. If you get hurt because of me, I will really be ashamed of myself. The duty lies." Eric responded calmly. "No, your mission at that time was to stay put." Rhaegar buried his face deep in his arms and said in despair, "Sir, thank you for coming to save me regardless of your past grievances. I'm really sorry, that the plot of the previous chapter is to pave the way for the future, so there is no need to worry about the result of failure despite having blood. Strictly speaking, the protagonist is successful. He had already established a connection with Mtlnovel, but it was interrupted by a chain midway. Before Aemon tamed Rhaegar, he also tried to touch the Dreamfire, but was scared away by a mouthful of dragon flame. Every Targaryen has experiences growing up. Chapter 34 Leonor's Proposal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You don't need to be sorry. Every Targaryen is obsessed with dragons, and it's not uncommon to make poor judgments on impulse. Looking at Rhaegar lying on the bed enduring pain, Illich had no right to be angry. At the mention of the dragon, anger surged in Legia's eyes, and he gritted his teeth and said, I was already on the verge of taming the dream fire. There was an accident. Eric realized that the matter was not simple and asked with a frown. Rhaegar said with anger, Dream fire is about to accept me, but a chain imprisons it, making it unable to even stand up. The master recognition ceremony between me and Menghua was forcibly interrupted by that chain. At the end of the sentence, Rhaegar almost roared from his throat. There were red bloodshot eyes, which connected with the purple pupils, forming a strange color difference. Failure is not terrible, blocked success is the worst sin. Illich did not expect that things would turn out like this. He pulled Minas unkindly and threatened, you will check the dragon's lair regularly. What's going on with the chain? That even if he hasn't had much contact with dragons, he knows that the chains that tie a dragon are usually long enough and will not affect the dragon's free movement. As Rhaegar said, Dreamfire's situation is anything but ordinary. Illich had reason to suspect that the illegitimate bachelor was murdering the prince, being grabbed by his collar and lifted high up. Minas was frightened and said in a panic, It's not me. I'm only responsible for cleaning bones and dragon dung. These are dirty and tiring jobs that no one does. How can I dare to touch a giant dragon? Who else is it if it's not you, Menglong? Or is it the Bachelor of Bath you call me? Eric obviously had no intention of letting him go, so he punched him twice in the face, causing his nose to bleed. Minas screamed and kept explaining, it's really not me. The only ones who can change the chains of the dragon are the dragon hunters. Those guys can appease the dragon. He defended himself hoarsely. The noise made Rhaegar's burns even more painful, and he said in annoyance, tie him up first. We will return to the Red Castle immediately. This matter must be reported to my father. The wound hurt so much that he couldn't concentrate on thinking. He only wanted to do two things now. The first is to go home and find your parents, the second is to find out who changed Menghua's chains privately and then fed him to the dragon. Illich said without objection, yes, Prince. He threw Minas to the ground, took off his belt, and tied his hands behind his back. After subduing the helpless illegitimate bachelor, Illich gently carried Rhaegar out. The carriage was just outside the gate of Dragon Cave, and Illich walked steadily and quickly, ignoring the driver's frightened look. Rhaegar was placed flat on the spacious seat of the carriage. He kicked Minas into the coachman's arms and said, tie him to the back of the carriage and let him run with it. At the end, he reminded, the prince is injured. The carriage can be fast, but not bumpy. Yes, sir. The coachman had never seen such a battle before. He obediently tied Minas in the trunk and blocked his mouth with a rag. Complete the mission and drive the carriage back to the Red Keep, Red Castle, King's bedroom. After watching the tourney all morning, Viserys returned to his room tiredly and lamented his lack of energy. Call the Prime Minister over and say that the king has something to discuss. After punching his lower back, Viserys shouted towards the door. An attendant responded outside the door. Within 10 minutes, Prime Minister Leonor opened the door and walked in. Your Majesty, do you have anything to discuss? Leonor's fat body stood beside the table and asked respectfully. Viserys waited for the attendant to pour a glass of wine for each of them and signaled them to go out. When there were only 2 people left in the room, Viserys shook his wine glass and said melancholy. Recently, letters proposing marriage to Rhaenyra have almost piled up. I have been hesitant about what kind of partner to choose for her. Leonor looked hesitant and said thoughtfully, Your Majesty, I think there is a more important thing waiting for you to decide than choosing a husband for the princess. Oh, is there anything more important right now than Rhaenyra's marriage? Viserys asked amusedly. Leonor couldn't help but smile. His eyes never left the king's face since he entered the door. His rich life experience has cultivated his taciturn character, and he also has a pair of eyes that can see people's hearts. Leonor knew that the king was pretending to be stupid and habitually avoided problems. After pouring the red wine in the glass into his stomach, Leonor boldly said, Your Majesty, Prince Rhaegar is your eldest son. According to the primogeniture system of Westeros, he should be the heir to the Iron Throne. Viserys immediately changed his expression and said gloomily, But the current heir is Rhaenyra. She was chosen by me personally. She is older than Rhaegar. The words have made it clear that Leonor has no reason to retreat. From a rational point of view, Prince Rhaegar is a male, and a male heir who complies with legal principles can gain the allegiance of the lords more. Rhaenyra has been the heir for many years. She even traveled across the continent not long ago. The lords all recognize her. Viserys was indignant. In this regard, he is really similar to Rhaenyra. Be willing to listen to other people's opinions, but take them as opinions only. It all depends on personal preference, Leonor said. That's because they have no better choice. If Prince Rhaegar stands on the table, they will definitely be more willing to support a male heir. After spending many years together, Leonor knew Viserys better than he knew himself. He knew what to say and do to convince the king. Unfortunately, when faced with the issue of heir, Viserys was firm and would never give in. He shook his head and said dissatisfiedly, "No. Rhaenyra has not made any mistakes, and no one can deprive her of her qualifications as heir." What should Prince Rhaegar do? Leonor did not worry about whether Rhaenyra made a mistake or not, and said calmly, "Prince Rhaegar was born as the heir. He used to suffer from frailty, but now he is in good health. Are you going to give up on such an excellent eldest son?" "Of course not." Viserys denied it and stated his plan. "Rhaegar is a good boy. He loves his father and his sister. I will hire the best teacher to teach him so that he can grow into an upright man. In the future when Rhaenyra takes the throne, he can serve as hand of the king, regent, and even the guardian of the entire realm." Leonor was stunned and said in disbelief, "My lord, do you really think so? That's just a euphemism." Leonor's heart was full of twists and turns at this time. As the eldest son of Rhaegar in the king's words, shouldn't he be the heir? What's more, such an outstanding prince would really succumb to others and silently contribute to others. Brothers from small aristocratic families would also fight to the death for the family property, not to mention the allure of a whole king. Neither can biological siblings. Viserys ignored it and insisted, "I believe in Rhaegar. He will help his sister manage the government affairs well and protect the kingdom from infringement." Leonor opened his mouth, not knowing what to say for a moment. He picked up the jug from the table, poured himself a glass of wine, and drank it again. "Okay, I trust your decision." In view of your generous support, the author made up his mind and spent huge sums of money to purchase a cover. Due to the price issue, don't be dissatisfied. Thanks to Princessing You for the 2,000 points, thanks to Wenwen from Fantasy Weight Loss for the reward of 100 points. Chapter 35. Don't let the wealth go to outsiders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a while, Leonor stopped worrying about the issue of heir and expressed his submission. He saw how the king's actions would sow trouble for the future of the kingdom. As prime minister, he had to find a way to resolve this ambiguity. He had already thought about the countermeasures for the heir countless times. "This is not a problem for him," Leonor said. "When it comes to the choice of the princess's marriage, I have a carefully considered choice." "Who?" "I remember you said last time that it was Leonor Valerian, the son of the sea serpent Corlys." As long as there was no mention of changing the heir, Viserys was still very talkative and had a smile on his face. "Sir Lenino is indeed a good candidate for marriage, but that was a proposal half a year ago." Leonor had no intention of showing off, and said bluntly, "Your Majesty, I think from various perspectives in the kingdom, the most suitable choice for the princess is Prince Rhaegar." "Rhaegar?" Viserys' smile froze and he said doubtfully, "Rhaegar is only 6 years old and Rhaenyra is already 14. By the time Rhaegar reaches the age of marriage, Rhaenyra will almost become an old maid." Leonor said confidently, "This is not a problem. In fact, the princess and the prince are only 8 years apart. They can get married in 10 years at most. Before that, we can get them engaged first to dispel outsiders' desire to covet the princess." A blunt statement of true knowledge and insights shows Leonor Strong's wisdom and loyalty to the kingdom. Needless to say, these words made Viserys' heart skip a beat. In the 6 months since Rhaegar recovered from health, although he had not expressed his position, he had been considering it over and over in his mind. He did not want to disown Rhaenyra as heir for the sake of his eldest son. That would make his daughter resent him. He owed Rhaenyra and felt guilty for the daughter who lost her mother at such a young age. At the same time, he knew that Rhaegar was a more suitable heir than Rhaenyra. In private, some ministers also hinted at changing the heir to him, but he ignored them. for this reason, he ordered Rhaegar to be grounded, and he was not allowed to enter and leave the Red Keep freely, and he heard only a few words about the qualifications of the heir. He is deceiving himself, perhaps, as long as Rhaegar did not hear this information, he would not be dissatisfied with losing his qualification as heir. The guilt in his heart towards these two children can also be reduced a bit, but he knew that fire could not be contained in paper, he could not forever restrict Rhaegar's freedom and block his ears. That's why he was even more concerned about Rhaenyra's marriage. As long as Rhaenyra finds a powerful partner and family, she will be able to secure the Iron Throne in the future. At that time, even if other brothers and sisters have different intentions, they will not have the resources to compete. Leonor gave him a good suggestion and asked him to explore another idea. Prompting Rhaenyra and Rhaegar to marry can eliminate the ambitions of those who are interested in the king's power. It can also unite the two of them as one, so they don't have to worry about the heir. Facing this idea in his heart, Viserys said calmly, "But if we allow them to get married, I'm afraid Rhaenyra and Rhaegar will be conflicted." It doesn't matter, the Targaryen family has always had this custom, and this has continued from the ancient Valyrian period to this day. Leonor saw through the king's little thoughts at a glance and promised, "Your Highness is still young and doesn't understand this matter. As long as you comfort the princess, everything will go smoothly." After getting the answer he wanted, Viserys smiled, "Leonor, you are really my right-hand man. Sometimes I wonder what I would do without you." Leonor stroked his crooked collar and said solemnly, "As the king's hand, I dare not take credit for my service to you. I will accept your suggestion and discuss it with Rhaenyra later." Viserys, accustomed to the hand's humility, offered encouraging words of approval. Compared to Leonor Strong's dedication to public service, former Prime Minister Otto Hightower pales in comparison. Look at Otto's transgressions. He married his daughter to help him cling to royal power, and secretly wooed ministers to support his grandson Aegon. He even tried to persuade him several times to appoint an heir. If not, Viserys would not have been dismissed from his position and sent back to the old city to recuperate, given his character of not offending others easily. Dong dong dong. While the monarch and his ministers were reaching an agreement and enjoying the wine, there was a rapid knock on the door. Viserys frowned and said displeased, "What's the matter?" "The Prime Minister and I are discussing national affairs." The voice of Captain Harold of the King's Guard came from outside the door. "Your Majesty, Prince Rhaegar just returned from the dragon's lair, and his attendants said he was seriously injured." "Rhaegar is injured, what's going on?" Upon hearing that his eldest son was injured, Viserys couldn't sit still and hurriedly stood up and opened the door. Hadro looked solemn. "I heard from the attendant that Prince Rhaegar suffered burns. It seems that he failed in his attempt to train a dragon." "Damn the person in charge of the dragon lair, how dare they let Rhaegar train the dragon privately?" Viserys cursed angrily. Leonor persuaded from the side, "Your Majesty, now is not the time to distinguish who is right and who is wrong. Let's take a look at the prince's injury first. If you are injured by dragon flames, you may be lucky enough to save your life. Any small mistake may lead to catastrophe. The young prince is of great significance to the kingdom and is an important population resource for the Targaryen family. You must not die young at this time." Viserys also reacted and said in a panic, "Yes, take me to Rhaegar and ask the Grand Maester to treat me immediately." As he spoke, Viserys walked out without controlling his feet. "Your Majesty, the prince's bedroom is downstairs. I will take you there." Harold restrained Viserys from panicking and escorted him down the stairs. The group soon arrived at Rhaegar's room. Standing in the corridor, Rhaegar's door was open, and Viserys saw Rhaegar lying unconscious on the bed, with obvious burns on his back. For a brief moment, Viserys' eyes widened and he realized what it meant to be heartbroken. "Rhaegar!" With a low cry, Viserys walked quickly to the bed and looked at his eldest son sadly. Grand Maester Melas on the side was unrolling the bandage and reminded, "Your Majesty, you'd better not disturb the prince's rest. He is seriously injured." Viserys turned to look at him and asked anxiously, "How is Rhaegar doing?" Melas shook his head and said in a low voice, "The situation is not optimistic. The extensive burns on the body surface were caused by dragon flames. Recovery will be very difficult. Just ask for any medicine you need, and we must cure Leonor." Viserys thought he would go mad if his eldest son was killed by dragonfire because of poor care and had never died of infirmity before. "I couldn't imagine how I would explain it to Rhaenyra. how to explain to my dead wife Emma ailing. There is no need for strange medicines. Someone has dealt with the prince's trauma in time and with very clever methods. Melas wrapped a bandage around Rhaegar's body to prevent the body from losing moisture and preventing the wound from becoming infected. Some movements woke up the sleeping Rhaegar. Before I even opened my eyes, I heard Viserys' sad pleading, "Grand Maester, please do your best to save me. I can't lose any more relatives." Small achievements, 100 monthly votes and 1,000 collections completed. Thank you for your support. The 2 additional chapters will be paid first, and when the next small achievement is completed, they will be presented 5 chapters at a time. Chapter 36 The Curse of the Chain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Father, I'm fine. His back felt numb, and Rhaegar braced himself and spoke. Rhaegar, my child, did I wake you? Viserys sat helplessly on the edge of the bed, reaching out to touch his son, but he didn't dare to do so. No, I wasn't asleep at all. Rhaegar smiled, reached out to hold his father's big hand, and comforted him. I have the blessing of the white deer, but I can live to be 100 years old. Viserys held his hand tightly with his backhand and couldn't help but nodded. You are right, you are a child blessed by the 7 gods. Pain cannot make you give in. Trying to force a smile, Viserys tried, tell me, some people say that your injuries were caused by trying to tame the dragon. Is that true? Rhaegar regretted, yes, I almost tamed the dream fire. 7 levels of hell. How dare you secretly train the dragon behind your father's back? That's the always violent Menghua. Viserys almost collapsed, unable to believe that his eldest son could be so bold. Rhaegar explained, but I really almost got Menghua's approval. I didn't see what you said. I only saw my beloved child lying on the hospital bed with big blisters on his back. Viserys whispered a painful lesson. Not only was he expressing his anger, but he was also worried that the loud noise would scare his eldest son who was seriously injured. Being rubbed salt into the wound again, Rhaegar's face turned red. I didn't lie. I can feel the anger in Menghua's heart about being imprisoned. It recognizes me. Kamuka almost killed you with dragon flames. Viserys growled, his eyes full of fear. Lei Jia blurted out, someone changed the chain of Menghua. During the last step of the recognition ceremony, Menghua was angered by the chain, and then he went crazy and attacked me. Chain. Viserys looked stunned, his brows furrowed. The chain holding dream fire is abnormal, forcing it to lie on the ground. Rhaegar immediately told the truth. Viserys fell into deep thought, wondering who had changed the chains and for what purpose. Leonor's voice came from behind, Your Majesty, Sir Eric is outside the door. Do you want to summon him? Coming back from his thoughts, Viserys said angrily, Call in, I want to ask him how he protects my child. Eric entered the room, consciously walked to the bed and knelt down on one knee. Viserys looked at him with stern eyes and said in a cold voice, Explain today's itinerary carefully, especially why Rhaegar was injured. Don't miss a single point. Yes, Your Majesty. In the sight of everyone in the room, Illich spoke frankly about his day's itinerary, departing from the Red Fort to the blacksmith shop, from entering the dragon's lair to meeting Princess Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon, from Rhaegar training the dragon alone to escaping from the dragon's mouth. Within a few minutes, Illich had explained everything in detail. The more Viserys heard, the darker his face became. He glared at Illich angrily, blaming him for not following Rhaegar step by step. Leonor spoke up at the right time, Your Majesty, the bachelor named Minas is very suspicious. We can start with him to thoroughly investigate the matter. Where is the illegitimate child? Viserys nodded in agreement and asked Illich angrily. Illich whispered, Minas was imprisoned in the dungeon by me. Sir Hadlow, do this yourself. Viserys nodded in agreement and sent the experienced herald to take action. With the suspect in hand, Viserys' anger subsided slightly and his focus returned to Rhaegar. Rhaegar looked hesitant. Father, Minas should not have the guts to murder me. Can you spare his life? Viserys snorted coldly. You are still thinking about others. I really don't know if you are kind or stupid. However, he did not refuse the eldest son's request and told Harold to give someone a breath. Rhaegar turned to look at Illich and said softly, Sir Illich has done his duty faithfully, but I am too arrogant. You. Okay, I know what you're going to say. Viserys interrupted him, held down his hand, and said impatiently, I won't punish him, okay? Thank you, father. Rhaegar felt warm inside and lay down on the bed honestly. For a moment, the father and son fell into silence. Upon seeing this, Leonor waved to Alec and Melas, and exited the room in a wise manner. After a while, Viserys looked out the window at the sunset and said hesitantly, Did you, really almost tame the Dreamfire? Yeah, if it weren't for that damn chain, I would definitely succeed. Rhaegar replied disappointedly. Viserys fell silent again after hearing this, and a stern look flashed across his lowered eyes. Mtlnovel is an adult giant dragon. Although its size is not as good as that of Vermisor that hatched at the same time, its ferociousness is far superior to the young Syracuse and Sea Smoke, even stronger than Red Queen Melia's and Bloodworm Calaxiu. The eldest son could obviously tame such a powerful helper. He was caught by a ridiculous chain and almost lost his life. This kind of loss and psychological gap was unacceptable to Viserys. Gently stroking Rhaegar's messy short hair, he said deeply, Good boy, father will make the decision for you. Rhaegar said, I recently had a dream about a dragon's lair. You asked me to believe my dream. I want to tell you about it. Speak. You have the talent of a dreamwalker. No matter what you say, I will listen carefully. Upon hearing that it was related to the prophetic dream, Viserys was looking forward to it. Rhaegar used the same rhetoric he had used when chatting with Rhaenyra, focusing on the harmful effects of dragon lairs. Dragons cannot be bound by chains, otherwise they will be cursed. Viserys thought for a moment. You mean, this time the dream fire is out of control, it's the so-called curse? No. The loss of control of dream fire is mostly due to human factors, and it is not a real curse. Rhaegar was threatening, this time may just be a reminder. If we use chains to restrict the dragon's freedom, it will definitely lead to more terrible consequences. He is convinced that the experience in ancient books is not false. If Mtlnovel hadn't been shackled, he wouldn't have been harmed. Viserys' expression was unpredictable, and he finally decided, dreams will not be fake. I will start a thorough investigation of the dragon's lair and eliminate the rats in the dark. But the master dragon of the family cannot live without its lair in King's Landing. The dragon's lair will still be retained, and the chains can be removed appropriately. Rhaegar agreed with his father's approach and said, as long as the dragon is no longer chained, the curse will no longer be fulfilled. As the sky grew dark, Viserys looked at his eldest son distressedly and said goodbye, have a good rest. I will see you again tomorrow. Well, see you tomorrow. Rhaegar said goodbye obediently and watched his father walk out of the room. After everyone left, the room fell silent. Rhaegar was left alone, lying on the bed in despair and grinning. How could such a large area of burns be okay? It was just a pretense in front of his father. Hiss, the power of the dragon flame is really unreasonable. A little spark can't burn me to death. While gasping in pain, Rhaegar couldn't help but feel scared, thanks to the effect of blood and fire, otherwise the fragile body would definitely not be able to withstand the dragon flame burns. I'm afraid it has been burned through from the back to the chest. Thank you again, Balerion. Rhaegar thought of Balerian's skull placed in the center of the church, and his eyes flashed with joy. Thank God for the favoritism, and the reward is 3,000 points, thanks to Huang Xiaoyang for the reward of 100 points. Chapter 37 Playing a Little Temper. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dong dong, just as he was thinking about it, there was a slight knock on the door. Rhaegar frowned in confusion, not knowing who would come at this time. Brother, I'm here to see you. Helena's soft childish voice came through the door. Rhaegar recalled his promise last night and said, come in, the door is unlocked. Crunch, the door was slowly pushed open, and Helena, wearing a silk nightgown, cautiously poked her little head in. After looking around to see if there was anyone else in the room, he entered the room, turned around and quickly closed the door. A set of movements flowed smoothly, like a skilled thief. Rhaegar looked amused and asked, what are you afraid of? Will there be monsters in my room? Helena shook her head and put her index finger to her lips. Shoo, I ran out secretly. Mom hasn't rested yet. Is Allison in your room? Rhaegar wondered. Helena walked quietly to the bed and replied, she just went to find her father. Rhaegar raised the corners of his mouth, knowing that Allison must have been called away by his father. That's good, at least I don't have to see her false condolences. Looking up at Helena, who was looking forward to it, Rhaegar pointed to the fireplace. I bought a rubber ball and some other toys. Go and have a look. Helena nodded her head quickly and ran happily to the pile of toys by the fireplace. Illich is a strict person, and he completes the tasks assigned by Rhaegar very seriously. The toys I bought were all the most popular items in each store, and they were very popular with children. Helena first picked up a colorful leather ball, then grabbed a dragon-shaped rag doll stuffed with goose feathers. The little girl sat down on the carpet and played with her new toy. Rhaegar smiled and did not interrupt her to entertain herself. She lay on the bed and closed her eyes to rest. He promised Helena that he could play in the room, so there was no reason to refuse. Moreover, this half-sister seems to have prophecy ability, so there is no harm in getting in touch with her more. Maybe it would help him figure out the rules of the dreamer's talent. Although he didn't know whether the dreamer's talent was irregular or not, neither brother nor sister spoke, and the room fell silent. The handsome little boy is bedridden with a sickly look on his face, and the pink little girl is sitting by the fireplace having fun, a beautiful scene of warmth and harmony, until Helena picked up a bright silver bracelet, held it up and asked, "Brother, is this bracelet for me too?" Rhaegar heard the sound and thought it was an imitation made by a blacksmith shop, and said casually, "No, that is my accessory." "Oh." Helena responded without saying anything and silently put down the bracelet. Seeing the little girl's disappointed look, Rhaegar couldn't help but think of Rhaenyra's rejection of him, and his chest felt tight, hesitating slightly in his heart. Rhaegar smiled with relief. "Now it's yours. If you like it, wear it as a gift from me." He didn't want to reject Helena just as he didn't want his sister to reject him. After a sudden turn of events, Helena raised a smile. "Well, thank you brother, I like it very much." "It's okay. If you like something, you have to fight for it. This is what you deserve." Rhaegar responded softly, his chest rising and falling, pulling at the injury on his back, and he frowned in pain. Helena finally realized something was wrong with Rhaegar, and returned to the bed holding the bracelet, as if confused. "Brother, why are you lying still?" "I was a little injured and could only lie on the bed to recover for a while." Rhaegar told the truth. "Does it hurt?" "Aegon sometimes pinches me secretly, and it hurts." Helena naively thought that Rhaegar had also been pinched, so she climbed onto the bed with her feet and puffed up her cheeks. "Let me breathe for you, it won't hurt anymore." Rhaegar was amused by this silly girl. Laughter stretched the muscles in his back, making the pain even more severe. "Damn chains, why don't they hurt me to death?" The pain increased, and Rhaegar angrily cursed the bastard who changed the chains. Venting his frustration, Helena was startled by him and huddled in a corner of the bed, not daring to come near. "Don't be afraid, I'm scolding the person who hurt me, not you." After reacting, Rhaegar smiled bitterly and comforted his sister. "It's really hard for him, my back hurts again, and I have to comfort such a silly sister." Helena couldn't hear his voice, but she had her own set of unique thoughts. He crept up to Rhaegar's side, raised his little mouth and blew hard on his bandaged back. Rhaegar looked at this scene and felt a little strange in his heart. It seems to be an inexplicable comfort. He reached out and rubbed Helena's silver hair, and said with a smile, "Okay, my wound doesn't hurt anymore." Helena stopped breathing and looked at him blankly. There was confusion in his clear eyes, as if asking really. Rhaegar noticed the bracelet in her hand and suggested, "Would you like me to put it on for you?" Helena tilted her head and thought for a moment, then nodded. Taking the bracelet, Rhaegar took one of his sister's hands and put the bracelet on. Thanks to Rhaegar's past frailty, his figure was too thin. The bracelet according to his size was just the right size for Helena's slightly baby-fat wrist. Rhaegar praised with satisfaction, "The chubby little girl is worthy of this bracelet." Unexpectedly, Helena's face, which was flushed just a second ago, suddenly changed. He suppressed his smile, pouted his mouth and moved away from Rhaegar, turned his back and huddled up. Rhaegar's smile faltered. He didn't expect that a 2-year-old girl would care about fat or thinness. Helena's name was called several times, but she did not respond and remained motionless in protest. Seeing this situation, Rhaegar smiled helplessly and turned his head to sleep. As for an apology? Targaryen men never apologize. Time passed by minute, and the night became darker in the blink of an eye. Helena turned her head and took a peek at the sleeping Rhaegar. seeing that his brother was motionless, he slid out of bed and left the room. On the other side, Rhaegar has just returned from Dragonstone. As soon as she entered the Red Keep, she was stopped by the attendant, who told her that the king had asked her to talk. "Okay, wait while I change my clothes." Rhaegar was satisfied after a day of fun, so she washed up and went to see her father. Arriving at the door of Viserys' bedroom, Rhaegar was about to knock on the door when she saw the door opening from inside. Alicent walked out of the room in a gorgeous dress. Rhaegar was in a good mood and took the initiative to say hello to her stepmother and best friend. Alicent smiled reluctantly and reminded in a low voice, "Rhaegar is injured and your father is very angry. Please don't contradict him for a while." Although Alicent at this period has shown his disloyalty to their former best friends, but without the bewitchment of her father Alto Hightower, she and Rhaegar have not yet reached the point of breaking off their relationship. Show kindness to Rhaegar at the right time and maintain the long-broken friendship between the two. Hearing that Rhaegar was injured, Rhaegar's mind buzzed, and she immediately asked, "How could Rhaegar be injured? Isn't he protected by Ser Illich?" Alicent glanced back into the room and was about to reveal more information when he was interrupted by Viserys' voice. "Rhaenyra, how much longer do you want your king to wait?" It could be heard that Viserys' tone was very bad, and he was suppressing a surge of anger. "Sorry, I have to go back and look after the kids." Alicent returned an apologetic look, holding up the hem of her skirt and passing by Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra entered the room with a frown on her face. Confused, Viserys was sitting next to the stone sculpture sand table in the bedroom, playing with a dragon-shaped stone sculpture. Chapter 38 Father and Daughter Quarrel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaenyra strode closer and said aggressively, "She said Rhaegar was injured." "What happened?" Viserys said dissatisfied. "Rhaenyra, is this the way you treat your father and the king?" Rhaenyra was speechless for a moment and said helplessly, "I'm sorry, I'm just worried about Rhaegar's condition." "Rhaegar is in very bad condition. He has extensive burns on his body. The Grand Maester says he will probably not survive." Viserys spoke out what the Grand Maester had said about him, but he didn't think so. Rhaegar was in good spirits when communicating with him, and did not look like he was about to die soon. Viserys believed that it was the seven gods who protected his eldest son. Rhaenyra, who didn't know what was going on, was stunned by his words. He was stunned and speechless, almost falling down. She is just such a sibling, the closest relative her mother gave her with her life. How could it be? Rhaegar was fine this morning. No way. Rhaenyra muttered to herself in confusion, unable to believe the bad news she heard. She couldn't accept this. Where is Rhaegar? I need to see him. It took Rhaenyra a while to come to her senses. Eager to see Rhaegar, Viserys sneered and said, "So you still care about your younger brother? I thought your heart was all taken away by that bastard demon." "What are you talking about? That Uncle Daemon has stolen my heart." Rhaenyra subconsciously retorted and continued to ask, "I want to see Rhaegar, my brother needs me." "No, he doesn't need anyone, he just needs to lie in bed quietly to recover." Viserys refused without mercy. He already knew everything about what happened in the dragon's lair today, including the conversation between Rhaenyra and Daemon. He was keenly aware that Daemon seemed to covet Rhaenyra. His own brother seduced his own daughter for power, which was something Viserys would never allow. He must nip mistakes before they happen. Seeing her father being so tough, Rhaenyra didn't know why and could only choose to relent. Worried, "Father, I am Rhaegar's sister. You should at least tell me why Rhaegar suffered." Viserys made no secret of this, and told him frankly why. Rhaenyra exclaimed, "Rhaegar went to tame the dream fire alone. Is he crazy?" Dragons are known to be cantankerous creatures. Female dragons like Menghua, who have been imprisoned all year round, are even more outstanding. Rhaenyra tried to tame dragons step by step with the help of the dragonflies when she was young. To break into a dragon's lair and tame a lonely adult dragon is simply to seek death. Every year on Dragonstone, one or two young men with ancient Valyrian blood secretly try to tame wild dragons. In the last scene, most of them were burned to ashes or swallowed by wild dragons. Few people survive under the dragon's flames. Rhaenyra felt unspeakably uncomfortable at the thought that Rhaegar might be burned badly by the dragon's flames. If she had not refused Rhaegar's request to fly on a dragon, she might not have put him in danger. Seeing his daughter's remorse, Viserys softened and was no longer prepared to continue to scare her. He sighed and said, "Rhaegar is very lucky. He was just burned by the dragon flame." He needs to recover for a while. I think there will be no big problem. That's good, as long as Rhaegar's life is not in danger. Rhaenyra breathed a sigh of relief, her heart in her throat falling back into her stomach. The killing rod began to show results, and Viserys placed it on the stone sculpture, intending to reveal its true purpose. Rhaenyra, do you have someone you like, someone you admire each other? As a father, Viserys felt slightly embarrassed when he said this. For the sake of the future of a pair of children, I bite the bullet and ask questions. The topic changed so quickly that Rhaenyra didn't turn around for a moment and asked suspiciously, "Why do you ask this? Is there another adult who proposes marriage to you?" Ahem, of course not. Viserys coughed to cover up his embarrassment and spoke eloquently. I think you have reached the age of engagement. If there is someone you really like, you can tell me. No, most of the men I see are a bunch of idiots, and a few smart ones are too self-righteous. Rhaenyra's expression turned disgusting to the naked eye, complaining about the men who spread their wings in front of her. Viserys rubbed his brows and hesitated. What would you think if I chose a marriage partner for you who meets the requirements in all aspects to get engaged? Father, we agreed not to mention this matter until the end of the tournament. Rhaenyra was very resistant to the urge to marry. Viserys said quickly, you should listen to the candidate, it may satisfy you. It's up to you. You can't escape those families anyway. Rhaenyra turned around angrily, not wanting to face her father at this moment. Losing his daughter's gaze, Viserys felt less stressed and blurted out, what do you think of Rhaegar? Rhaenyra stiffened, turned around with difficulty, and said with a look of disbelief, Rhaegar. He is only 6 years old, and our relationship. As she spoke, Rhaenyra's eyes rose with anger, and she asked loudly, you are willing to sacrifice my marriage for the Iron Throne, and now you plan to use it even Rhaegar. Viserys was also aroused and raised his voice, what do you mean by sacrificing your marriage? As a royal princess, marriage is your duty. Even as a king, I can't escape this. Rhaenyra was unconvinced, if you want to get married, go alone. I don't like those scavenging vultures, and I won't allow you to have Rhaegar's idea. Rhaenyra. Do you know what stupid things you are saying? Viserys stood up, pointed at his daughter and said angrily, you are the princess of the kingdom and the heir to the Iron Throne. Because of your status, you enjoy the most noble honor in the entire continent besides me. But now, look how selfish you are. You only care about enjoying the rights that your identity brings you, and you are not willing to sacrifice your identity for it. Viserys glared at Rhaenyra with wide eyes and asked, is this the sense of duty of being the heir to the Iron Throne? Rhaenyra gritted her silver teeth and would never give in. Power is not about compromising with others, everything you want must be achieved by yourself. What have you achieved? Apart from being the heir, what else do you have to be proud of? Viserys asked sharply. Rhaenyra smiled miserably and said indifferently, this is what you want to say buried in your heart, right? You also think I shouldn't usurp the title of heir. You have sons now, Aegon, Aemond. Especially now that Rhaegar is back in good health, you no longer need a girl to be your heir. Viserys immediately denied, no. I admit that I have wavered sometimes, but I still recognize you as my heir at this moment. Female heirs are deviant. If you don't choose a partner with a strong background, it will be difficult to secure the Iron Throne in the future. I know you don't want to marry the sons of princes and nobles who you don't like, so he would be a good choice. He is pure in nature and has Targaryen blood. His identity will also help you consolidate your power. Thanks for the 100 points rewarded by Sunmi Shudao. Chapter 39 Conflict Intensifies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Viserys spoke sincerely and spoke his mind to the end. As he finished speaking, he stared at his daughter expectantly. I hope the words can rub off on her, let her find her way back from her wayward ways. Rhaenyra's eyes were red, and she looked back at her father with only sadness and determination. Obviously, she didn't listen to her heart, tears welled up in her eyes, and Rhaenyra choked with sobs. I don't want to marry Rhaegar. I hope my future partner will be a tall, handsome, mature man, not a young brother. For the first time, she revealed her true thoughts, albeit a bit cryptically. Since losing her mother, Rhaenyra's heart has been filled with emptiness and fear. she didn't want to marry a man she didn't love and become a tool on the birth bed. The father loved his mother enough that he still chose to keep his younger brother and cut open the mother's belly when the mother was in labor. She would never forget the day she ordered Syrax to breathe dragon flames and cremate her mother's body. Rhaegar feared that this day would happen to her again. The husband she expected would be a tall, handsome, gentle man who regarded her as her destiny. Because of this, she has vague feelings for Cole, who has always been gentle. Viserys didn't understand his daughter's heart, and he only responded with superficial words. He thought he understood. You can get engaged to Rhaegar first, and then get married when he comes of age. You are both still young and have plenty of time to fall in love with each other. Never. Rhaegar is my brother, we cannot decide his fate for him. Rhaenyra shook her head repeatedly, mentioning Rhaegar's fate, but actually feeling sad for herself. Viserys wanted to continue to persuade, but Rhaenyra covered her ears and ran out of the bedroom as if she was running away. She didn't want to hear any more. Because her father always had a way of forcing her to give in. Looking at Rhaenyra's embarrassed back, Viserys slammed the cup and said angrily to himself that he was unfilial. Everything he did was obviously for the future of his daughter. Time flies. 3 days later, the scene of the martial arts competition was bustling with people. Viserys sat on a throne with a smile on his face, listening to Prime Minister Leonor's report. Your Majesty, the dragon's lair has been thoroughly investigated. Through the evidence of an old dragon man, it is confirmed that the chains of Dreamfire were replaced privately by Bachelor Bath in Old Town. The reason is that Mtlnovel has a bad temper and often shows an aggressive attitude when the dragons send livestock. In order to protect the safety of the Huanlong people, we have replaced the chains with shorter ones to restrict the movement of Dreamfire. Viserys turned his head when he heard this, raised his eyebrows and said, Do you believe such sophistry? Leonor shook his head. I don't believe it, the explanation is too far-fetched. Is the illegitimate child in the dungeon involved in this matter? Viserys suddenly remembered Minas, whom Rhaegar had begged to spare his life. Currently, this person has no motive for murdering Prince Rhaegar, and Bachelor Bath also expressed his contempt for his background. Leonor told the truth. Viserys thought for a moment, waved his hand and said, Since it doesn't matter, let it go. It's thanks to that young man that Rhaegar's burns were repaired in time, otherwise he wouldn't have healed so quickly. Leonor smiled softly. The prince's self-healing ability is indeed amazing. I heard that he recovered from his injuries very quickly. He is really a Targaryen blessed by the 7 gods. After a pause, he whispered, Bachelor Bath is very suspicious. I don't know how to make a decision. A cold light flashed in Viserys' eyes, and he said unkindly, The maesters in Old Town are all servants of the people. If a servant tampers with the master's things, how should we be judged? Enough to cut off his hands, Leonor answered promptly. That's it. If he wants to go to the Great Wall to be a night watchman, don't stop him. Viserys approved. Leonor obeyed the order and bowed to leave. He still has many government affairs to deal with, so it is inconvenient for him to stay longer. With the Prime Minister gone, only Daemon and Rhaenyra were left with Viserys. Today is the last day of the tourney, and most members of the royal family will be present. Rhaenyra, who was eavesdropping next, turned around and said displeasedly, That bullshit maester almost killed Rhaegar, and you plan to forgive it so easily. Viserys frowned and said, Maesters belong to the Old Town. No one can judge them based on their own will. Cutting off their hands or sending them to the Great Wall to serve as the Night's Watch is no longer a light punishment. Rhaegar almost died because of him, so he should repay with his life. Rhaenyra spoke her will. It can't be like this. Power is not a butcher's knife that can kill people. It's what a king should do. Viserys didn't want to dwell on the issue and stopped Rhaenyra from retorting with his eyes. Suggestions were always ignored. Rhaenyra snorted coldly and adjusted her sitting position. Daemon on the side watched the father-daughter argument silently, with a self-sarcastic smile on his face. His brother had a weak character and he had a keen understanding of his indecisive way of doing things in his early years. Viserys was not aware of his brother's contempt at all, and was enjoying the competition below. He didn't think there was anything wrong with the way he handled it. A king should restrain his desires. You cannot take the lead in breaking the law for your own selfish desires. The battle in the tourney was fierce. Events such as charge, melee, and mounted shooting have already been decided, only the most important duel is left to compete for the championship. Under the attention of thousands of spectators, the two players on the duel field launched the final showdown. A tall warrior from Casterly Rock, wearing heavy armor and holding a broadsword, one is the dark horse of this tournament, Water Dancer, Shirley Freer. Shirley's swordsmanship is as superb as ever, his body is as flexible as a snake, and he walks as nimble as a rabbit. Every time he takes a shot, he will avoid the opponent's slashes and pierce the weak points of the opponent's armor. Use the tip of the sword to bring out bright blood flowers. In less than half a quarter of an hour, this duel ended. As expected, Shirley defeated her opponent and won the duel championship. Amid the cheers of the nobles and commoners in the audience, it was time for the king to issue rewards. The top winners of the previous projects received bonuses in turn and received praise from the king. Soon it was Shirley's turn. Looking down at Shirley, who was kneeling on one knee, Viserys smiled sincerely. "I remember you. You once threatened to win the championship. It seems you didn't brag." Shirley said respectfully, "Your Majesty, Shirley dare not boast to the kingdom." "Very good, I promised you a request, you can say it now." Viserys took his words seriously. Shirley was not polite and said bluntly, "I come from the distant Bravos. I have no relatives, no family, and no honor here. I want to beg you to let me stay in the Red Fort, even as a dance teacher." "Why would you want to stay in the Red Keep?" "I thought you wanted to become a knight." Viserys was greatly puzzled and secretly wary of this man. A superb swordsman who is good at assassination must not stay where he lies without worry, Shirley said without hesitation, "because of your eldest son, Prince Rhaegar." "Rhaegar?" Viserys was confused. Shirley said, "As your eldest son, Prince Rhaegar, in terms of character and wisdom, is the only one I have seen in my life. A country is lucky to have such an excellent prince. I hope to stay in the Red Castle and teach the prince swordsmanship in my spare time to ensure that he will have good martial arts skills before he reaches adulthood and become a brave and capable knight." Chapter 40 Abolition of Chains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shirley's voice was loud, and his words spread throughout the competition field. It immediately attracted countless probing glances. This is the first time that someone has exposed the identity of the king's eldest son in public and expressed his support in person. Faced with such sharp words, Viserys thoughtfully said frankly, "Swordsman, I know your origin. If you really want to serve my son, you must first swear your faith. This heart is bright." Shirley pulled out the iron sword, raised the sword above his head with both hands, and said seriously, "I am willing to swear an oath." Immediately, Shirley swore loudly to help Rhaegar Targaryen grow up and maintain his authority before he comes of age. This scene was watched by many interested people, and they all observed the expression of Princess Rhaenyra. "I want to see how the princess, as the heir, views someone who is loyal to her brother." Rhaenyra always smiled and sat demurely on her chair. He seemed to be happy for his brother and didn't care about it at all. Just think of it as a very ordinary knight willing to follow a lord. No one noticed that Rhaenyra was secretly pinching the top of her thigh under her sleeve. Viserys was also paying attention to Rhaenyra's expression, and seeing that there was nothing strange about her, he nodded secretly. He took Shirley's iron sword, put it on his shoulder, and announced loudly, "I will appoint you as a royal dancer and give you the title of Sir. I hope you will not forget your oath." "Thank you for your grace, your Majesty." Shirley respectfully thanked him. At this point, the tournament to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the king and queen came to an end. The nobles and knights walked down from the auditorium and followed the king back to the Red Castle for the banquet. Rhaenyra walked among the crowd. Although her expression was well managed, she still couldn't hide her inner disappointment. Daemon followed her and witnessed his niece's devastated posture. There was a trace of wantonness in his eyes. At night, there was singing and dancing in the hall of the Red Fort. Rhaenyra, who had no intention of having fun, excused herself first and walked along the stairs to a familiar door. Looking at her brother's door, Rhaenyra suddenly woke up and realized where she was. She had been coming here every night since Rhaegar was injured. "Meet my brother who has limited mobility." On the other hand, she was shaken by her father's proposal. "It's far better to form an alliance with your brother than to marry a strange man you don't know." Just as he was hesitating whether to knock on the door, he suddenly heard the little girl's laughter coming from inside the door. Rhaenyra's face changed slightly. and she didn't even want to push the door open. What caught his eye was Rhaegar and Helena lying face to face on the bed, with a chessboard in the middle. "Rhaenyra, are you here?" Seeing his sister arriving, Rhaegar smiled and waved, inviting her to play chess together. Rhaenyra slowly closed the door, walked to Helena and sat down, touched her sister's little head, and asked doubtfully, "When did you have such a good relationship with Helena?" Helena's big eyes stared at Rhaenyra, and she called her sister slowly. Rhaenyra smiled back, liking her sister very much. "It's much easier to worry about than my brother." Rhaegar took a pillow and put it under his body, and said, "Helena is always bullied by Aegon. I allow her to come to my place to play with toys when she is free." He said, pointing to the pile of toys next to the fireplace. Rhaenyra nodded suddenly. She had already noticed the pile of exquisite toys. "I originally thought it was Rhaegar's own, but I didn't expect it was for Helena." Rhaenyra didn't have the time to think too much about this matter. While instructing Helena on how to play chess, she asked Rhaegar about today's situation. Rhaegar was in a good mood and said happily, "It's okay, the wound has begun to scab, and the Grand Maester said it will heal soon." "The Grand Maester said that you have a special physique and it seems that you will become a powerful warrior in the future." Rhaenyra said to herself meaningfully. She didn't mention Shilu as a person, and it was better to leave it to her younger brother to contact him on his own. After chatting for a while, Leonor suddenly thought of the dragon lair and asked, "Has anything been found in the dragon lair investigation?" That he was concerned about this matter. "I've been looking around for the past few days." Rhaenyra brought good news this time. The person who changed the shackles privately was Maester Bath. His father sentenced him to chop off his hands, or put on a black robe and go to the Great Wall. "I knew there must be bad guys among the maesters coming out of the old city." Leonor shook his fist angrily and said in confusion, "This kind of person should be beheaded in public. It is really easy for him. I proposed severe punishment to my father, but he rejected it." Rhaenyra shrugged helplessly. Rhaegar gave her a sympathetic look and said no more. He knew that his sister's life was not easy either. She was the heir, but her father never gave her any real power. Suggestions made always fell on deaf ears. Leonor changed his words, thinking of the light blue dragon, and asked seriously, "How is Menghuo? Has the chain been removed?" "Don't worry, my father ordered all the shackles in the dragon's lair to be abolished, and the dragon's lair to be separated, so that there is a wider space for activities." Speaking of this, Rhaenyra agreed. She also didn't want Syracuse to be chained, so it would be best to set aside a separate area for the dragon to move around. Leonor felt relieved after hearing this and sighed. "Menghuo is very pitiful. It has been locked up in the dragon's lair for decades. I really hope it can welcome a new owner soon and return to the sky." After this danger, Viserys saw the recklessness of his eldest son. It was decided through the imperial meeting that he will lead his family back to Dragonstone Island to live for a period of time in the near future. Choose new baby dragons for your eldest son Rhaegar and your second son Aegon to tame. There happened to be 2 young dragons that met the requirements on Dragonstone, which were very suitable for the 2 sons to control. Therefore, Rhaegar also gave up the idea of taming the Dreamfire. Instead, "I look forward to my upcoming trip to Dragonstone." Looking at her sentimental brother, Rhaenyra smiled knowingly and said abruptly, "What should you do if your father decides to prepare a marriage for you?" Rhaegar stopped playing chess and winked. "If necessary, I am willing to take on the responsibility." He is still young and gets answers to many of his questions from books. Throughout the family history of the Targaryen dynasty, except for a few wanton fools, both men and women had to accept marriage. Aegon the Conqueror had 2 wives. He married his sister Visenya out of duty, and married his sister Rhaenys out of desire. Subsequent monarchs either married the daughter of the guardian family or married close relatives. Even to his father Viserys and Uncle Daemon, isn't it also a marriage? With the nobles in the valley to ensure that the supporters of the royal power are loyal enough. Under this custom, Rhaegar did not think he could escape the fate of marriage. He just wants to marry a beautiful and gentle wife within the allowed scope. If you think about anything else, you are greedy. Listening to her brother's answer, Rhaenyra lowered her head and fell into silence. She knew her brother was right. Perhaps she shouldn't be so willful and should shoulder the responsibility. After a while, Rhaenyra smiled again, chatted with Rhaegar for a few words, then said goodbye and left. Staring at the closed door, Rhaegar remained silent for a long time. He guessed Rhaenyra's purpose tonight. Most likely, She was forced to get married by her father and came to him to seek some comfort, but he could not give Rhaegar the answer she wanted. If you talk nonsense just to echo her thoughts, it may cause incalculable consequences. Wearing a crown is not about being superior to others, but the light of the crown shines upon all. Thanks to a digital book friend for tipping me 100 points. Recommended information came yesterday, and the first round of recommendations will be released next week. I hope all book friends will try their best to keep up with the updates and vote for more monthly votes.